I got thrown into a group and I saw I was with Victor again. I'm like, oh, well, this makes this easy. I'm this person introduced to.
Mhm.
So you and Victor know each other?
We had a project last semester in one of our other classes where we had to develop kind of like an app, but not fully develop it. So we've worked together before, yeah.
Mhm.
How about you, Kyle? What made you want to do this, or again, did it pick you?
Yeah, it kind of picked me.
I did a lousy pitch. Can I point that out?
There
I
weren't
feel like
many
a lot of
projects to choose from, really.
Honestly,
yeah. I feel like a lot of
Really?
people in the
Yeah, a
class
lot
were
of
just
them. Yeah,
you
that's
had
why
the
they had it
longest
split.
They got
description
snatched
for your
up real fast.
project.
there was a
Yeah.
lot of either basic, like, oh, make a computer logging system for UNT, or
hmm
then there was like that big scary one. I don't
There's
know
a
what
database
was.
one on there too.
Yeah, some of those, but then there was one massive scary one, which I was like, no, I'm good. That's way over my pay for what I know.
Yeah.
And then Chef Kathy's, which was like, it was
Two
an
different
interesting
parts.
idea. It's just nothing I wanted to do.
Mm.
That's interesting. It's I'm always, which, as you know, I think I mentioned this. Like, I'm just I'm a curious soul. Period. And then, you know, I'm always curious about what motivates folks to do what they do. You know what I mean? Because fundamentally, as you get, I guess, more senior in management, you do less and less
Right.
to a point where you don't really do much, but you do try to figure out, okay, where are we going? Why? And how do we make sure that folks feel part of that and feel invested in it? And obviously that matters. That matters, I'm going to say it like it matters as much and even more with the more junior folks on the team, as in the ones that have done, they're new to the team or new to the industry or new to the technology. So it's just interesting. It's important to me to understand you guys actually, and what's motivating you, and kind of, I find it very interesting too, because this is a unique, if you like, management opportunity, because you guys are not full-time on this. You've got your senior year to work through. You've got other things that are going on. So it's a matter of, okay, so I have a certain amount of time of your time. How can we all make sure that that is beneficial to you and that we make progress on our goals? Right. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And gosh, that's hard.
It is challenging.
But then what I'll tell you is management is, but that's probably why it's so well rewarded. Okay, so we're all here. I was asking, and again, not everyone was here at the time. Has anyone worked on an Agile project before?
I haven't, no.
Now, I ran through some slides really quickly. I don't know if you remember, right at the beginning of this, talking about the Agile Manifesto and Agile principles and all of that good stuff.
Right.
And what I'll share with you too is that, like, I don't know, or at least, yeah, I've asked around. I don't know anyone who's not using Agile at this stage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it would be definitely worth your while, guys, to at least be able to use the terms, and ideally be able to embrace the what goes on, the details of it, because almost certainly, if you want to be involved, at least in, I'm trying to think, yeah, pretty much any development, and that means any IT, you're probably going to need to have some Agile capability. And then I was thinking, Hunter, about yourself, like you want to do that AWS and kind of get AWS certified. But that's also, that gets into DevOps. And DevOps is very much about infrastructure as code. So, and agile infrastructure as code, which sounds about as scary as it is. And then it gets into things like Docker and all the rest of that. Docker being a container. So that what you have is essentially a container, and I'm using my air quotes here, infrastructure in a single code-defined environment, so that your code starts to define your environment. Which, yeah, it's cool stuff, but it's definitely also agile. So anyway, that's just a note, by the way. So, and of course, because the folks that developed Agile were very careful to say, hey, these are guidelines and you should not make them a religion. Everybody has their own interpretation of Agile, which is kind of the point. Some folks are more Agile than others. I may or may not have sent you, because I didn't want to overburden you with lots of philosophical emails. I wanted to kind of focus on the brass tacks of things. I think I might have, though. One was, here's why low code, no code is great. And then another article that said, here's why it's terrible. And you can pretty much do that for everything in IT. You can find some smart guy that's saying it's brilliant and another that's saying it's terrible. So there you go. The Agile that I'm using is pretty aligned with SAFe 5.0. The reason I find that useful is because it's kind of corporate, it's well defined, it's well documented, and you can get certified in it. I'm certified in some of it, but I'm only going to get certified in things if someone else is paying for it.
Right.
My view, but I will use it. So, if you're wondering, okay, what are we following? We are roughly following SAFe, which is Scaled Agile for the Enterprise. Because BC Enterprise, we're all about, every company is an enterprise. If you take an enterprise approach, that's usually robust. It should be adaptable. It should be scalable down as well as up, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's talk about epics. And I am going to share. Last time I shared, as we all know, everything dropped.
Oh, yeah.
So if that happens, so somebody say, yeah, I can see it, or I definitely want this to be more interactive. I will say that.
Sure.
Because, you guys have had 4 years of schooling, so recent schooling. I graduated in 1986 when these newfangled things, PCs, were just coming into their own. So that's, now I've learned every day of my career since, but you guys probably have a more, kind of just a more recent theoretical background. Although, as I said, I tend to, who knows? Okay, so this is the multi-sprint plan. It's assuming 3-week sprint, right? Now, a sprint has it. What you're trying to do is keep a cadence or flow, right? To where you're like, okay, by the way, we're sitting here. Sprint 1. Sprint 0, I decided was planning and prep. Might as well acknowledge reality while we blow right by it. Then I decided we did a program increment, even though as such we didn't. And it's kind of debatable about what that means when you've only got one team and a SaaS solution, but I don't care. So we're into this 3-week sprint. And what I'm figuring we need to do here is do master data, environment setup, roles, and at a stretch, we might start the work around we might start the work around some of the development, that being smart quote approval workflow, right? And I want to show you and I'm going to send these to you, what the epics look like for this. Can you guys see all this?
Yeah.
All good.
Okay, so let's look at master data and profile setup. Okay. Funnel data, well, it's going to be today. Oh, there we go. So an epic represents kind of an overall kind of feature set. It's more than one user story, and it has every single thing in Agile has a defined measurable output. Does that make sense? We're going to do a fairly unorganized, fairly messy attempt at a sprint planning in a minute. And everybody has their own view of that. This one's going to be even rougher than usual. They're always, at least at the beginning, as teams kind of gel and figure each other out, and as people figure out what they can do, what they can't do, what they can commit to, what they can't, it's always kind of messy. Just going to say that. But we'll get to that. Okay, so in order to usefully demonstrate the system to a customer in the print industry, it's important we have information in it that would be recognizable and familiar to a customer. For Dallas-based commercial print companies who sell digital and offset printing services, the master data. Anyone here familiar with the term master data?
No.
No.
Good. See, I don't have to. See, the beauty of you guys is I don't feel like I have to break any of your bad habits.
Yeah, we're kind of fresh. Went behind the ears.
Slates.
We don't have any habits.
Yeah.
That's the good news. That's the good news.
Yeah.
Bad news, Jesus, lads, you don't have a lot of habits.
That's good.
But again, this is honestly, it's going to be quite hard work for you guys to get up to speed on all of this stuff, so that you can, because it's not, it's a bit like I know I have some gamers in the group. As you know, when you first start out with a video game, it's kind of annoying if it's a good one, because you're getting killed a lot. And then as you get good, it's more fun. So, even if it isn't this project, I think once you get your careers launched in IT, you'll probably find the same thing. But let's see how far we can get you. And let's see how far we can get, because anything you guys produce is going to be useful. I will say that. So, Dallas-based commercial, blah, blah, a way for them to identify with the solution that meets their needs. Unlike the Cronus setup, which is a furniture company, our solution has information in it that matches their needs. Does that make sense? It's kind of, hey, we need to do the baseline. Master data refers to things like chart of account, items, customers. In other words, it's not transactional data, it's reference data in a system. And any large system has, again, I'm using I shouldn't use quotes, it is massive. And it defines the look and the feel of a given system. So, if your master data is off or it's wrong, your system will generally fall over. I could send you a video, but I don't think you have. By the way, this is DevOps, and it's all about the biggest top ERP system top 10 failure. It's this guy. He's talking about a $1 billion failure for the U.S. Navy. I've mentioned a $780 million failure. And they fell for all sorts of reasons, but one of the reasons is they forget why they're there, and master data can definitely be a reason. But what I will tell you is that there's a hell of a lot of money to be made or lost in what we're doing. So hopefully that's positive. Okay, where was I? Okay, Epic. So this is the master data epic, one of the epics, right? And I guess this roughly corresponds to the feature set we talked about. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So each document should build on the other. Otherwise, there was no point in doing it. So we should definitely reference back. I just haven't had. I've been fairly heads down on things, this being one of them. So the other one that I wanted to talk to was 3-day. So many small companies struggle with monthly closing and take up to 5 days to be closed. The company I'm working with at the moment, Pallet Logistics, takes 10 days, 10 or 11 days to close. So, okay, anybody here familiar with what a financial close is?
Like closing a sale, do you mean?
Not really. So
Oh.
a financial close is where, so every month, should be every month, sometimes it's quarterly, but it's monthly, and then there's more quarterly. A company figures out where it is financially. Okay, how much cash, how much money do I have going out? How much do I have coming in? What are my, do I have all of my invoices? Do they reconcile to what I actually bought? Is my inventory correct? They'll do something around inventory to make sure that it reconciles. In other words, that what's in the warehouse is actually what I thought was in the warehouse. So that's a close. And industry best practice is 3 days, and if you can do it in between 5 and 10 days, that's good. If it's much more than that, it's usually bad, because what's happening is your accountants are spending all their time trying to figure out what's going on, and they're not able to tell the owner what's actually going on. So, again, it's like, here's what we need. Here's the business outcome. Here's what's going on. All about reconciliation, being able to tie your books, your GL, your ledger to your subledger, being able to understand what your cash position is likely to be, those sorts of things. It's a lot of financial reporting. And some of this is set up. A bunch of it is, but it's also just using the system. So the team will use the Epic to get up to speed on the audit business center. So, Hunter, you mentioned security. Well, this is kind of another. Well, security has so many layers. To be honest, I don't know that passwords would be where I would spend my focus, but I'm a biased person. I wouldn't necessarily take all of. Yeah, everybody has an opinion, so I wouldn't take it as gospel, but I wouldn't discount it either. Then we get into the meat of the things that I think at least Jonathan and Kyle you're here for, which is hardcore development. So commercial printing is by the way, I also want to get into some of that because that's the differentiator. But at the same time, there's an awful lot of work. So, when the U.S. Navy spent $1 billion on their ERP, I would say that, they were implementing SAP. SAP has a development environment, but it's supposed to be a developed system that they were implementing. So, a valid question might be, so what did they spend the $1 billion on? Well, it's stuff that isn't development. Some of it. I'll just point that out. So, anyway. So, and by the way, I'm going to send these. It would be good if you. So, okay. I know you're students, right? As I mentioned, I've got 4 kids. 3 of them are in college. So, please read this. And then we'll get back to you. But anyway, consideration is just not about cost, but delivery, right? So this is for salespeople and customer service. who respond to customer requests for quotes or pricing and delivery. The automated quote capability, that's what we're doing, is pages that capture key elements of the request, calculate cost and delivery based on current item costs and job schedule. It gives customer-facing employees a quick and simple way to have a conversation and, if necessary, request changes to current job schedule or quickly ascertain if a certain request is feasible and profitable, right? Mm-hmm. Unlike other tools that rely on manual calculations and gut feel for when a job can be accomplished and how much it might cost, uses the information Business Central and simple, easy to decipher algorithms to calculate. So, however, this kind of builds on the setup in the other epic, because we need to set up master data such as the machines, people, how long they're, what is their work schedule, how many days off do they have. So you can see that this is somewhat going to lag because, in order to do these things, you have to know a lot of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good. Business outcomes, the way the business will know the component is functional is when the quota cost. You can also see, I know you guys were looking at use cases in UML. And I was going to make the ugly comment. And again, if somebody in this group finds UML helpful to them, I'm not precluding its use. But what you end up doing is describing what you intend to do in a language that the end user doesn't understand. So if that benefits you, great. But a lot of what we're trying to do is describe what we intend to do in a language the user understands, focused on the outcome for the business, rather than on a piece of functionality as a deliverable. Right. Because and this is kind of the Agile philosophy or whatever, which is, hey, if I can demo this and the user can see value in it, then I'm getting fairly immediate value. And the analogy that some folks use is building a house. If you look at a waterfall plan, what that is the contractor rocks up and says, hey, I want to spend, it's a 6-month project. I want to spend 4 months drawing it out on paper, and I want to consume 65% of your budget doing that. Then I'll actually start doing shit you can see close to the end, and then I'll spend some more money, making sure that it doesn't fall apart right at the end. And you can understand why, if that was your money in your house, you'd be like, oh shit, no.
Yeah.
No.
Right? Like, where's my house?
Well, first of all, I want to see my foundations, and I want to see you working on the next expletive week, right? Yeah. I don't want to, if I can't see it, you ain't doing it, right? And don't tell me that I can't test the foundations till 2 weeks before the end, right? Because I'm not comfortable with that, right? But somehow we think IT should be that way. And then we wonder why QA gets foobarred and projects go over, right? It's not hard to figure out. You wouldn't do it. That's part of what's going on here. We want to be able to have validation steps as we go. We want to have tangible things where we can. And we want to be able to describe things in a way that the people actually paying the bills. And don't forget, we want, and we'll be trying to pull this in. I'm currently the user representative. Actual humans who do this for a living, as in do print for a living, not IT for a living, able to interact with us. See what I'm saying? It sounds like common sense because it is. And it just surprises me in a way that we got away with it for so many decades of just not doing it. It's like, and again, of course, right? You just know. Okay, so that's another epic. And then by the way, these are, I want you guys to look at them, review them, please get back, kind of make edits, be this is as much your document as anyone else's, because it's your project, it's our project together, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm the epic and that's the other, like, the other key area of Agile is the team approach, and I'll show you my little PowerPointy thing and why that matters in a minute. And then we're all going to give each other at some stage, if not today, then tomorrow or the next day, roles, job titles, things in this effort. And I'll just talk about it in a minute. So one of the key tasks and activities of an average commercial print operation is scheduling and rescheduling of jobs through plant. This is because jobs are built to order, as the products that are sold are built to order, and need to follow a set progression through the different machines and processes in the plant. Different jobs, different times, level of urgency, sometimes working overtime or applying different resources can speed them up. Having a tool to visualize and allow for management of the schedule would significantly enhance a company's ability to maximize its profits and deliver to customers. So for the production manager at a plant who organizes scheduling of jobs for the customer on behalf of the sales team, so usually the sales team has to do it. The job scheduler is a visual representation of jobs, duration of each task, as well as its dependency. It'll be very interesting to see how they talk about scheduled Tetris, and I see this as kind of a Tetris type of tool. That allows the plant manager or a member of their staff to run a what-if analysis of changes in the schedule, including additions, blah, benefit, blah. Leading indicators: we will know we have a good product when we get feedback from a user that the color coding and size of the scheduling box make it easier to visualize changes to the schedule. Kind of my thought on that. Non-functional, this would be an opportunity for the team to get up to speed on the manufacturing capability of BC, including routes, machines, resources, and jobs with tasks, as well as WIP. WIP is work in progress. Okay, so
I know that one.
good. Yeah. What I'll say is any one of these is big. That's why they're epic. And they're epic. Obviously we want to do this one first, and some of this, at least sufficient to it. And these are the good ones that we want to get to fairly soon. Yeah, that's grand, but obviously these are not things that are actionable. So we get into user stories. And I've done some, but I'm honestly behind. I want to do more. And this would be the content of the sprint planning, but it kind of can't be because there isn't enough of them. But I wanted to talk about we'll go through a couple of these, and then before we go through a couple of these, I wanted to bring up that PowerPoint I just sent you. Yeah, let's talk about this for a minute. Now, obviously, I've done this a lot, and I've done it in different organizations, and I've done it in different countries. And I have my own ideas about what that represents, right? So, what I have found to work well. So, if you like, this is a development team, right? So you got a developer who's probably got some code savvy, configurator, validator, coordinator. Coordinator coordinates the group, kind of is the interface, has a concept of where this is kind of Scrum Master, one of the, but the Scrum Master can also doesn't have to be, Scrum Master isn't necessarily separate from the team. In fact, the Scrum Master is supposed to be in the team. So this is more of a role. A Scrum Master could also be doing configuration, they could be doing validation, they could be doing development, right? Mm-hmm. But but their role is to keep everybody honest. And we'll get into what that means, and to have, be the kind of advocate for the team to external parties while the scrum is going, or while the sprint is going on. The idea of the sprint, by the way, is to say, okay, well, we're going to have a certain period of time which is going to be locked in. We're going to commit to a certain amount of work getting done as a team together, and that amount of work is going to represent 2 weeks worth of effort, 3 weeks worth of effort, and it's going to be tangible and deliverable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then the Scrum is it's a key core artifact of Agile. And what it amounts to is you guys get together, and I usually participate as the product owner. And what you're not allowed to say is, I'm working on a user story, right? It's the whole Yoda thing, you do or you do not. There is no try. Which is, we all know that the classic hiding place for I didn't really do much is, well, I'm working on it. Right?
Yeah.
So what the Scrum Master is supposed to do, and what you're supposed to do for each other and with each other, is say, okay, well, I wrote this page, or I configured this amount, right? And it's something that you've actually done, that's done. And it could be, hey, I didn't get a lot done. What I did is I just thought about it, and then it's, okay, well, for the next Scrum, I intend to, and it's what you intend to have finished, to have completed.
Right.
And then if it's a highly functioning team, which we hope we will be, if somebody can help you, or if you need help, you're like, hey, but I could really do with, does anyone know how, this page setup, or by the way, I still don't have, which you don't, Visual Studio Code, so I can't edit the pages. Oh, by the way, I need to log into Business Central and configure it, which I can't do, which I'm hoping after 2:00 you can. That you're sharing, and then the Scrum Master is supposed to come to me or to whomever and say, hey, we're falling behind here in the Scrum because we've got this external dependency and it's not getting addressed. What you going to do about it? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Scrum is very interactive. It's a stand-up meeting that takes 15 or 20 minutes, because it's not about, it's about what you've got, what you've done, what's in your way, and what you intend to do by the next Scrum. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Now, kind of this validator configurator, it's kind of like solution analyst, I think I've called it as well, because a lot of the effort is around configuration and validation, and you don't want to be doing both. So you could, for a user story, you could in a sprint, and what I expect of this group is, in a sprint, you could be the person doing for a certain user story, and we'll get into user story. And then you'll ask someone else to validate that by running through the acceptance criteria, right?
Mhm.
Same with a developer. There might be some code that somebody wants to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you get good on a given process, like finance, like manufacturing, like sales and marketing, you become a process champion. That becomes your area of focus. I don't know that we have time enough to develop folks who are process champions or process specialists. Business is so vast. That's an area you want to really dive deep in. So we'll get into that, but this is the core group here. Okay. Okay. That was a lot of scene setting. We're going to do a couple. I think we're going to have to do another. We're gonna have to do an other, or a second half of the sprint planning, because I honestly I don't have enough user stories together, and I'm gonna start asking for volunteers to help me put those together. So there. Okay. So, but let's start now. So, who's okay? Let's stop. Gonna have chat. I mentioned a couple of times. Who's the first? So what we're going to do is we're going to have. Let me go back to the sprint one. So we've got 3 sprints this semester, right? So I mentioned that we're going to have Scrum Master rotate, right?
Yes. Is that normal, by the way? Does Scrum Master typically rotate, or is that just to give us all experience with it?
It's to give us all experience with it.
Got it.
Scrum Master rotate. And there's huge debate in the industry as to what a Scrum Master should be or should be. Because the whole concept of project manager or program manager is kind of somewhat is a little what's the right word? Yeah, is not necessarily compatible with Agile or with scaled Agile. So naturally enough, the hundreds of thousands of PMs are like, well, we don't like Agile. This thing one, it doesn't work. And then thing two, they're like, well, what is our role? Some folks say it's Scrum Master, although I wouldn't agree with that, which of course pisses a lot of PMs off. I would see maybe release train engineer being more of a PM role. So that's thing one. The thing two is Scrum Master could rotate, and certainly in early Agile it probably did. And also it tends to be a self-selecting group, right? So not everybody wants to be the line leader. And it is kind of the line leader. It's not even a first among equals. I'm sure you've heard of the concept of servant leader, right?
Yeah.
This is very much that. It is, I guess, I was reading this morning. I've never actually played Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not that kind of nerd. But I guess it is the Dungeon Master. And as you know, yes, the Dungeon Master has a certain amount of power, but they're also playing, right?
Yeah, they're part of the team too.
Yeah. So Scrum Master is usually, and in this group, so it's usually someone that has maybe slightly more experience or has some passion behind the process. Although I hope not too much passion behind the process, because it's not the process. It's one of those things where if you really, really badly want to be it, you probably shouldn't be.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, okay. I'm gonna be arbitrary. I can be arbitrary. I'm gonna be arbitrary today. I'm gonna say, since Kyle, you're the designated PM, you are going to be the first Scrum Master, right?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, it will rotate, as I said, and the reason is, yes, I would like everybody to try it out, and I'll send you some information, Kyle, about being Scrum Master.
All right, great.
Here's the thing. The Scrum Master is not accountable for the sprint, right? That is the big difference between, say, a PM, some PMs, or project lead, and a Scrum Master. Because everybody is accountable for the sprint.
Right.
So it's not that, for instance, Kyle will be following up saying, have you done this? Have you done that? Or because the purpose of the Scrum is that you tell everyone what you've done or what you haven't done. And everybody's holding you to account. Not that Kyle is or the Scrum Master is. That isn't the role. The role is very much to facilitate, to coordinate, and to advocate. But it is not to manage.
Right.
So just so you know. And again, not everybody likes that. You know, and PMs hate it.
It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, you know, it's just different. Okay, but it's there is no, that is the blessing and the curse of Agile. There is no easy role. There's no, I'll just hang out here, be cool. You know, because some PMs, they're like, well, I'll just organize the tasks and then I'll ask everybody if they've done their task yet. And that is a way to send me off the deep end. It really is. Because honestly, what is the value of that?
Right.
No. Did you do your job yet? No. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to set a status report now. Like, okay, well, have you done your job now? No. Okay, well, I'm going to put that on my status report too. And it's like, fucking hell.
Yeah.
That's my, don't get me ranting. I could do that all day. But, so here's what I haven't done, right? First of all, we as a team, but I as the product owner, have not put together a backlog of user stories because, Jesus, I just got to the goddamn epics. I've been doing a lot of research, trying to get us all set up. That's my excuse. I'm behind. So normally you'd have a backlog of user stories. As you saw, I've got 5, and I think we'll get more than that done in a 3. I hope we'll get more than that done in a 3-week sprint. That's thing 1. Thing 2, I would normally stack rank the user stories. And what stack ranking is these are the more critical user stories for us to accomplish our goals. So somebody gets to decide that. It's usually not a collective. It's usually the product owner. Although it doesn't have to be, but what that stack, and I'm going to give you a new word, you're going to love it in 1 minute. But the stack ranking has to do with business priority, right? It's been refined, stack ranking's been refined by a term called WSJF. Has anyone here ever heard of WSJF?
Nope.
Can't say I have.
Yeah.
Nope.
That is WSJF. And I always have to look it up. I'm laughing, but Jesus. WSJF. This guy. WSJF. Oh, you can't see my screen anymore. Yeah, weighted shortest job first. Weighted shortest job. I won't be adhering strictly to WSJF. What that says, by the way, weighted shortest, and actually, let's have a think about applying WSJF to our scheduler. Whoever is going to be, I think everyone will be doing something on that scheduler. Just kind of note WSJF. Here, I'll just show you. Because that's part of prioritization. When you think about it, a lot of what you have to do is, there you go. So cost of delay divided by job duration, job size.
So
this is, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna say, so it doesn't simply prioritize like the profit or return on the job. Like it's more of a ratio to see like what's the, I guess, the fastest story like that could be accomplished, right?
Well,
or job, I mean.
It's a bit of so.
Like it's not a greedy approach type of thing.
Well, you see, here's the thing. If I get if this huge big job, so that's probably the biggest, right? But and it has the most benefit. And you think, well, okay, well, it's got the most benefit, so maybe I should do it first. Well, if that ties up the whole friggin' team, and you don't really see any benefit right until the end, but you can get a couple of things done that are shorter,
right?
that have similar value, and if you added them up would have more, then you probably want to do a few short ones as well. And a lot of what this gets down to, because it's actually, again, common sense codified, but again, it's not a formula to follow. What it says is, hey, if I have 3 or 4 small tasks, right, I can usually fit them into a sprint. But if I have one big one, then I'm adding a shed load of risk to my sprint, because if I just don't get one of them, then my sprint's a failure. I didn't get the one thing I needed to do. Now, there are times when that is the thing you need to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But an awful lot of what gets into Agile and an awful lot of what gives it its power is taking big problems and breaking them down into small ones that can be accomplished in the time available to do it, right? There is nothing as disheartening, and I know all you guys feel this, as facing into some big ass huge thing that you won't get any feedback on whether it's a success or failure until a month or so from now.
Yeah.
Right. So the idea here is that you break it down, you keep breaking it down into things that you can accomplish that have a tangible benefit that you can show. Right. And it helps everyone. Right. It helps everyone. So that's a lot of, and honestly, that's also why user stories are so friggin' hard, right? Because you don't get to hide as a product owner, as a person like me, whereas it's like, well, okay, what is it that you actually want here? And have you thought about it enough to break it down, right?
Right.
So anybody that tells you Agile is unorganized or easy doesn't understand it. Just flat out just does not understand that it's very rigorous and usually requires a high level of expertise. But you like everything else, you get better at it over time. And if you go about it, even though you may or may not have that high level of expertise, you learn as you go, right?
Yeah.
Now this thing produces pretty little formula. It's all on Safe 5.0. You can drill in, but it is definitely a factor. What I would also say is it's actually quite a good little tool, or should be something we think about for our own job scheduler for the print business. Okay? Right. Let's go back. Right. I know that's an awful lot of scene setting, but you don't have any bad habits I need to break, so I might as well.
So you're saying you want us to incorporate this like in the future for the actual job scheduler functionality, like as opposed to like a greedy sort of scenario?
Yes.
But just get as much done as just complete more jobs, multiple jobs instead of just one bigger one, I guess.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And think about cost of delay. Right? And criticality, especially with print jobs. Like if my wedding is on the 25th of October, you delivering my menu on the 26th does me no good.
Nope. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now, I'm going to get nervous if you give it to me on the 23rd, and I'm going to be bawling you out if you give it to me on the 24th. Right. So, there's a criticality factor there as well. So, what is the cost of delay, right? So it will all come in. It will all come in. I think, it's almost the same too with some of this stuff. Obviously, we want to get the setup going as quickly as possible so that we get the dev environment in place so that we can actually start to do some development. At the same time, if we completely ignore, okay, well, I want customers, and I'll talk about that in a minute, then, we don't have so my goal would be that we talk to this group, and we'll kind of figure out how we want to script it. We talk to an end customer latter part of this week, beginning of next week. So we need to be moderately educated to do that. with the goal of demoing back to them in a 2 or 3 week time frame of here's what we heard. Do you see it, right? And the cost of delaying that is that you lose a lot of credibility, right?
Yeah.
And also we want to be able to show them something before Christmas, right?
Yeah.
So that's my thought on our WSJF. But yeah, this is a great principle and it applies to more than just IT. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, I've stopped sharing. Okay, so I'm going to share again. So the other thing I'm going to do that I haven't done, that I may ask, hey, Kyle, the Scrum Master to help me with, is getting, once we agree the user stories, getting them into Jira so that we can look at them in the Scrum board. And I'll talk a bit about that too while I'm at it. But okay, so you saw the epics, right? We can do, a couple of epics in parallel because they're not exclusive. There is some dependency, but it's not. You see, and this is another thing. Classic project management had the idea of critical path analysis and yes, work breakdown structure, which is not entirely like WBS, work breakdown structure, which is classic project management, does talk about breaking the work down, which is correct. But it also does, it does kind of critical path analysis where, one piece of work is absolutely dependent on another. The reality is very few things are completely dependent on each other. It's usually vague. The reason I say that is because we're going to pick, obviously, master data and profile setup, and we're going to pick, I'm going to leave finance out of it for a bit because let's take a poll. Who is really interested in finance and accounting? And it's software.
I've taken an accounting class in high school.
That's good.
I
Good.
wouldn't be opposed to learning something new.
Yeah.
Who said that?
Nick.
Nick. Hey, Nick. Okay, good. Good. Well, then you have influenced the outcome. We're going to take a couple of things from finance as well, because yes, why not? I just wondered. It used to not be my thing, but I find that the people who pay for IT are almost always finance. So actually being able to give them something they need and talk in their language means you get more of their money. Just saying. Almost inevitably, the CFO, if you get on with the CFO in a company, you're golden. Because you can do things like you can run over on your project and you're like, so listen, we're going to run over. Here's why. You never want to surprise a CFO with money, but if you can tell them, it looks like we're going to run over. Here's why, but I think we're good on the ROI. If they feel like you're giving them things they need, they're going to be like, yeah, it's fine. If not, they're going to say, well, you've got a budget, stick to it. What are you going to cut?
Yeah.
That was, yeah. So anyway, I just find it funny. I say I find it funny. It can be very, very good stuff. Okay, let's get into this then. So normally there's a formal process. Everybody gets in the room. Yes, we're in a Teams meeting. Yes, I've noticed that you guys are all very shy about showing your faces. That's fine, though. We'll get into that too. What you do is you review, okay, well, how many story points did we accomplish in the last sprint? What was our carry? Carry is, hey, the sprint's over, right? We committed to these user stories. How many of these user stories did we finish? And by finish, that's developed, whatever developed means, and validated and demoed, right? And if it's not all of those things, it's not done. If it's not done, you don't get into percentages, you don't get into nearlies. It's just not done, and it rolls over to the next one. But it doesn't automatically roll over. So when you're looking at a user story and it didn't make it, the product owner gets the opportunity to say, well, actually, it's not as important to me in this sprint as it was in the last one. Or yes, actually, it's still very important and I still want to do it. So that can get a little medieval, but it's grand. It's grand. So just to explain that those things, so we had no carry from the last sprint, and you guys got 100% for the deliverable. So I'm going to call that a successful sprint.
Great.
Successful. That's again. So I have been in meetings that have gone on for 3 hours because folks didn't want to admit that the last sprint wasn't quite what they hoped it would be, and just fought every frigging carry going. And it's not even as much fun as it sounds. I'll just say that. But anyway, we'll get into it. Okay. So I did some user stories. We've got to do some more. We'll get into that. Well, I'm going to be asking for some help here. I'm also going to be asking for, part of the challenge, guys, is that I can't really delegate a lot to you yet because you haven't done any of this yet. You don't have the tools, and it would be unhelpful to kind of throw this at you and just go, hey, do it, right? So, one of my struggles, one of my goals here is to get you to a place where you can start to kind of, run with this. Just know that is one of my goals, because the good part about that is I won't have to work as hard. So I don't want that. And two is, you'll be engaged with this, and I think you'll find it interesting. But anyway, we're going to get into, AP clerk, role center. So here's a user story. By the way, I should show you isn't this horrible? Yes. See, where did I put it? Since I left GameStop, I won't bother. I won't show you what it shouldn't be. Right, user story, role center, profile for accounts payable. So, and by the way, I'm also going to probably do a quick walk through a little bit more on Business Central, because there is an assumption in Agile that you actually understand the system you're modifying, which in your case, you don't. Not that much anyway. Right. So, but we're going to go through the process with this user story. You're going to see what I consider to be a user story. And then I would like to collaborate with each of you to create some user stories. I'll pick them. I'll email it out so that, and then we will work on users. You just pick a couple that you want. Again, first come, first served, and we'll go from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we need more. Yeah. Okay. So target release date, none yet. But actually, so in true Agile, actually I'm going to do it. Target release date would be, let's see, we've got a 3-week sprint. So the target release date for that will be the 10th. Usually what you'll do is you'll target a release after the sprint, because that's when the user story should be complete. This actually might be before the end of the sprint, just because of the nature of what we're doing. Okay? It's sort of drafty. I'm the owner. We haven't decided who the solution analyst because what I'm saying is you've got developers and analysts, right? And If you're a solution analyst and you're doing the BA role, that means you're being the user advocate on this user story and making sure that from a business perspective it makes sense and it adds up. The QA role is about the person doing shouldn't be the person validating. So they're just making sure that it works and that it works the way they would want it if they were that user. And then the developer, if there's development going on, will be doing coding. That's the idea. Everybody's really development, but the more, it's coding.
Yeah.
And coding can mean an awful lot. But anyway. So as an AP clerk, I want my screen personalized so that my most important tasks will be reviewable. And as I work through my stack, I can easily see what's done and what's left to be done. And we did the job description in the document you guys got 100% for. It was a bit of ropey. So pay vendors by reviewing for appropriate approvals and resolving any discrepancies. Reconcile vendor statements. Establish and maintain effective communication, submit updates to the vendor. That was part of the job description. So in order to pay vendors, the AP will need to be able to, and there's customers, vendors. Do they need customers? Maybe not, right? So you'd make that invisible. They need vendors, they need items. They probably need bank accounts to get them paid. And then they may or may not need access to the chart of accounts. Again, whoever's getting into finance, and everybody will need to get into a little bit of finance. Chart of accounts is where you see is the accounts are where you see where the money's going or coming from. And weirdly enough, in business, we all like to see where the money is. So that's why chart of accounts matters, right? This is interesting. It's kind of the business insights for the week. That's based, I guess, on the profile. Here's where we might get into some coding early on. I'll just actually, because you can actually modify the page and change the headline. At the moment, it just gives you a greeting, right? So this user story is saying, hey, these are areas I need to change. Here's how I need to change them, right? Mm-hmm. And as part of sprint planning, I would have pushed this out sooner, and you all would have had time to look at it, mm-hmm. right? As it is, you haven't. Which is, again, we're trying to run to keep up. You see how I made it? You can personalize it, and you can see the red line.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's how easy it is to modify a profile, right? And you can make all of this and then save that profile back. So, this shouldn't be too hard. The key here is to and again, the key here is to make sure that this is adapted to an AP clerk. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. And then, as I said, we may or may not create a user story to modify the greeting. It may not be necessary. You're going to need overdue purchase invoices. You see how it says see more? Probably don't need sales invoices unless they're AP and A clerk. Sometimes they get combined, right? Mm-hmm. So, so I almost feel like I've thrown more at you than is reasonable, but I'm going to keep going anyway. Because you guys are, you're seniors. You can take it.
Yeah, we're geniuses.
It's funny. I was going to, so I'll tell you that. It's an anecdote. I'll tell you later. My youngest is 17, but she did her internship with Accenture when she was 16. And then made a really good Agile joke. And I'll tell you what, I'll tell you the Agile joke. Because, of course, that's the first thing they taught them. So it's like, okay. Anyway, so now, lads, you've looked at this, right? And in sprint planning, you would. What are your questions? Because as the product owner, I get to present user stories. We get to walk through them, which we just did. And then you get to ask questions about them.
So whenever we're doing the stories, will we need to actually talk with people that work in the business, or?
Well, so ideally you would, but given that we're kind of doing this as kind of as a proof of concept, I could possibly line up some people. And this is the whole, so that is the best question you could have asked. Because, so thank you for it. Because the problem, so in case you guys hadn't noticed, I'm putting together this business. It's not fully formed. Yes, I've got some customers, it's great. The money is great, but I want to really grow this business. And one of the things that I want to do is pay people to be customers. Something I've noticed that is a big miss in all IT projects is that only IT people seem to get paid to be on IT projects, right? And the actual end users, who are the people with the expertise, who are the people with the process knowledge, especially the more like, I'm going to use my air quotes here, ones that get paid hourly and do the actual work hands-on, usually don't actually get paid to be on the project, but they're the ones that have all the knowledge. Right. It's crazy town. So of course, no, we don't have those folks, but I'm going to get some. I'm going to get some, and probably pay them, but or maybe get some free time, because this is something of an experimental project. But what you will get is you'll get access to me as the user representative and subject matter expert, SME. And what we can do is we can actually talk to an AP clerk and an AR clerk. And I have a few, they're not in the print business. That is the thing I want to do next, is get folks and start to bring them in from the print business. I wanted us to have a minimum level of knowledge and expertise, so we're not, so that we're using their time well. So to answer your question is, not right away, but certainly in the next couple of weeks, I will be lining that up.
Got it.
And then here's the workaround, right? Is the way you find out what an AP clerk is supposed to do is you go onto the website of a target company and you look at their jobs, the jobs they're advertising, and that gives you what they want that role to be. And that way you don't have to write it. You know what I'm saying? Because the less work you do, the better. And the more, the more you reuse other people's work, the better. So again, right after buddying up to the CFO or to somebody in finance, you should really work hard to be a good friend to human resources, because they're the ones that will fire you. Or not, as the case may be. And one way is to actually ask them for their expertise, right? It's amazing to me how few people will ask, hey, we're putting together a system and employees of this company will be using it. Do you happen to have a spec for what this job role would be doing? Right? And of course they do. And okay, well, the type of person, what type of person is successful in this role? Do they like to jump about? Are they very methodical? How do we want to structure their experience in this. And HR love being, like we all do, asked their opinion and respected. It's much better than ignoring them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You'd be amazed at how often it's like, oh, I'll just ignore the people that manage people. Now, don't get me started on the different types and styles of HR because, well, that's a long story. Anyway, so to answer your question, not right away, but as quickly as possible. To make up for that lack, if you're picking up this user story, have a look at the job spec for an AR clerk or an AP clerk for a print company. Just Google it.
Okay.
That'll give you a feel for what the job responsibilities are, and then kind of tailor it around those job responsibilities. Okay. Then I may be able to get somebody who works, it would be in pallets, to give us information, and we will be, with the permission of the CEO of a print company, talking to their people. Okay.
Gotcha.
And what I would do too is, if you're going through the user story, just kind of jot down the questions you have, right? And then let's see if we can't get somebody who actually does that for a living to answer them. Make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
And you are exactly right in the question you asked. Okay, good. So as I said, okay, we'll be able to turn these on and off. Acceptance criteria, I need to be able to see purchase orders, purchase invoice, purchase receipts. I also want to see which vendors have the largest balances. So I think there's something around overdue invoices. I definitely want to see more. I want to see the ones that are, more overdue. I think that's there already. If it looks fine, that we'll use it. I also want to see vendors that have large balances, which ones are the most overdue. We'll be able to see my total AR aging. So there might be a couple of reports, 30 days and older. I also want to know what content. So a lot of this is walking through the system as you would if you were an AP clerk, and then making sure that it's pretty obvious when I log in my morning what I need to be paying attention to.
Right.
And then what I've said is the system constraints is we need Outlook set up and integration for all, and integrated for all users, as well as the ability to edit profiles and manage the content of pages. We want to know how to configure and manipulate cue cards. These are called cue cards, right? What they do is they allow you to see this. They allow you to see information. So lads, what? How many story points do you think this is? So I'll give you the definition of story points. And unfortunately, I have it 2:00. So we will need to reschedule, as in schedule some more time to actually do the sprint planning, which is great because I'll have more user stories by then.
Yeah.
Right. A story point of 1 is, well, this is about the easiest thing we can do. There isn't anything easier than this. In development, it's usually adding a line to a screen. Well, obviously, adding a line to a screen here is, this is kind of configuration. There is a profile, but at the same time, it's probably not the easiest thing you could do. So it goes 1, 2 is twice as hard as 1, so it's twice as much effort. 3 is 3 times as much effort. 5 is, yeah, there's a reasonable, a substantial amount of effort in this. I think, where's my Fibonacci? So how many story points, because that's what it is, story points, do you think this user story is? By the way, we're going to get better and better at story points. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. Anything much above 13, we're going to break it down. Okay. Tell you what, since we have it, just put your put your expectation of the story points in the chat. Just your initials, or I guess you don't need to. So, and that'll be our first user story voted.
It's hard to judge exactly.
Yeah, like what's our reference?
Remember the chat.
Okay, I'll give you your reference.
Yeah.
Okay. A 1. So this, I'm going to just tell you, it's my opinion that this is probably between a 2 and a 3. The reason that I think it's between a 2 and a 3 is that there's it's mostly like let me just get on. Okay, then. Was not expecting that.
Do we ever?
I know what's going on here. It doesn't like teams and dynamics are not playing well.
There you go.
Anyone else freeze up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
your camera's
froze.
completely frozen.
Yeah, should we send him an email?
Type on
Make
the
sure he's
chat.
I
aware.
heard him. Oh, lost the camera feed now.
Yeah.
He just got kicked out. It probably crashed.
I mean, I guess we could talk about the presentation for the next minute or so.
Yeah. So when are we doing that?
250 today.
250. So
Gotcha.
after the first group,
We're just gonna
pretty
do it
much.
live.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
I
like
mean-
present the slide you did.
Exactly, and I mean,
What about the last 2 slides? Yeah.
which ones are the
I
last?
joined back.
Oh, there you
I'm
go.
back.
Oh, there you go. Okay, cool. Yeah, you
Okay,
froze
what I
out
was
there.
trying to say is that the simplest thing is a 1-pointer. So your frame of reference would be, hey, if all I have to do is hide a bunch of fields, that's a 1-pointer.
Mhm.
If I have to think about it and I might need to move things around or I might need to spot a report, that'd be a 2-pointer. If I might have to change a page in some way or other, that would be a 3-pointer. And again, this is the first time you've ever done Agile, and this is the first time we as a team have worked together. So there's a certain amount of calibration. And by the way, every single sprint, you kind of recalibrate.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't get too hung up on it, right? The thing is to see what it's going to add up to, and then whatever that is, go, you know what? That's what I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then, because there's no, because we're a team and because we're new to this, and even if we weren't, the whole goal is not to create the perfect process. The whole goal is to get work done. And then to get into a cadence of doing the work that makes it predictable for us as a team on this effort. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because, and that's another, God, I have so many pet peeves. Like, we're not an actual methodology company, right? We're not an architecture company. In this case, we're a consulting company that's developing a solution for the print industry. So all we have to do is develop a solution for the print industry, but we're trying to do it in a way that's predictable for ourselves and has the least amount of friction within the team. Does that accomplishes the outcome. So yes, we do want to be accurate, but we can't be, so we're not going to bother trying. Make sense?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so go for it. Just type up your points, and we'll call that the first story with story points. And then we'll have to do this again so that we fill up our sprint, because one story will not a sprint make.
Okay. So we just like give our estimate for how many points it would be, or
Yeah. Kyle is 3.
I'm extra.
Well, you see, that's the beauty of this. We get into a little bit of, it's called what's it called, estimation poker. So you just put
Okay.
out. Here's the thing: you don't know whether you're going to pick up this user story or not, right?
Okay.
So you might be like estimating it high, thinking, oh, I'll probably pick that up, and somebody might pick it up for you. And
Okay.
again, there's a big debate in the industry as to whether you should evaluate team or how much it produces, whether you should look at individuals for how many points they get done, and then do you get point inflation? So what I will tell you is the points are important, and I will say that I always like to get, it's like, it's the competitor in me. I like to get as many points per sprint as possible, even though I know they're just an arbitrary bloody number.
Right.
But it gets very interesting. So we've got 1, 2, 3 3s and a 2. So the consensus on that is a 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? And so we would follow. So because I got 3 minutes left, and somebody's going to call me, and we all want me to take that call because it's going to help me get the development environment set up for this group. Okay. We'll come back, we'll do a few more user stories, and then what we would do is we would do what we've done here, which is estimate the points on the user stories. We already have the theme, and then the last piece is to do a fist of 5. And a fist of 5 says, okay, do I think, so it's each of you, do I think we can get that number of user stories done in this sprint? And it's almost like an honor system. I mean, the world will not come to an end if you don't get it, but there is a great sense of satisfaction in getting a sprint complete with all the user stories. So, that's always a nice feeling. So therefore, folks tend to want to vote so that they get the sprint done. So fist of 5. 5 says, yeah, I don't think there's any problem. I think we'll get it done. 4 says, be a bit of a stretch, but I think we'll get it done. 3 is, well, we'll be sweating, but we just might get there. 2 says, I don't think we can do this. And what you're looking for, and by the way, the Scrum Master does a lot of this, is what you're looking for is, do I have a consensus at least of 3, right? And any one person, there's a big debate again about this. Any one person can go 2. Look, I just don't honestly think we can get it done. But that person has to, so the person, say with 4, has to say why it's a 4, what they feel, what's driving that decision making. So it's not, because again, a group should be able to communicate honestly with each other. You know what I mean? That's productive. It's productive disagreement, productive conflict, which says, okay, here's why I think this is the 2, right? And what happens then is, if the person who thinks it's a 2, or people who think it's a 2, are convinced the others or can't be moved, we drop the user story out and reduce the points that we're committing to in the sprint. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you're trying to do is you're trying to reach a consensus that says we as a team will hold each other to account, will help each other where we have to, will drive towards this number of story points in this sprint.
Okay.
Okay?
Gotcha.
Okay, it is 2. Unfortunately, I have to go, but what's send me an email would you please, guys, of what, and copy each other of when we can meet again. We need just another 45 minutes. That's it.
Sure.
What we need is finish the sprint planning. Okay.
Real quick, do you have Wednesday at 2:30 open?
Yes.
We have a work day, I'm pretty sure.
We'll have to show up for the presenting Wednesday.
No, we're presenting today.
Oh, I thought he said everyone has to be there.
Possibly.
Yeah.
We'll email you on that one.
Yeah.
But that may be the best time, I think.
We'll figure it out by the end of the class today.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. That'll work, guys.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks.
All right.
Stay safe out there. Talk
You
to you
too.
soon.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
See ya.